Happy to be here. I titled this presentation as "This is our moment" for a variety of reasons, but I just can't tell you how excited I am to know that you all are committed in the summertime to this conversation about social justice literacy in education, because I want to share with you this concept of moving towards understanding our own diversity. And I already shared with you, but I put it in writing too, because I'm a super visual learner, as you can tell, is who am I and how do I show up in this world? When we talk about diversity, it's kind of this really basic term, but I think we're doing a lot of work in the system that I work in right now because people are really confused about the difference between diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice. They're using them synonymously, and then we're wondering why our results aren't changing, because it's actually not the same thing. Diversity is not the same as equity. And if we're not building equitable outcomes and goals for ourselves to meet those, and we just talk about diversity, we're not gonna change systems, right? I want to share with you why I started with that, and the why around why I've introduced the way myself in the ways that I have, and giving you the good context, because those aspects of my diversity and the things that you just kind of noted for yourself on your wheel are really, in my mind, about my diversity creates my culture. People often have shared with me in my work as an educator for so many years that they don't think that people have culture unless they have like a diverse ethnicity or racial identity. And so I've really tried to help people understand that we all have culture, right? Your culture, our culture, is determined by all of those pieces on your diversity wheel. Culture refers to the dynamic system of social values, cognitive codes, behavioral standards, worldviews, beliefs used to give order and meaning to our own lives as the lives of others. As Geneva Gay has talked about early in her work around culturally responsive teaching, is that even without being consciously aware of it, culture determines how we think, believe, and behave. And these, in turn, affect how we teach and learn, right? So all of those, the ways that we identify, the ways we experience the world, impact the way that we show up as an educator, right? And our ability to advocate for social justice in any of the content areas that we might end up teaching around that too. So I wanted to share with you a little bit and we're going to walk through some different exercises to share with you my thinking and just kind of the framework around having a strong critical consciousness and how that can support your work in social justice literacy. This particular model is, let me move the pictures, I think, from Ladson Billings from 1995, her seminal article on culturally relevant pedagogy. And she talks about that there are these three um, components of, and one being academic achievement and student learning. I use this in some of my other trainings and teachings. And so this particular model I added in here. To me, it's not just about academic achievement, it's about our teachers creating exemplars and rubrics. Do students know where they're at and how to get there with their scores and reaching success? The second component here is that she talks about, and this again in 1995, this is the early article. There's later articles that include teachers, not just students, but that students must develop a critical consciousness through which they challenge the status quo of the current social order. This third piece, the cultural competence, that many of you are probably familiar with this language, is really just about developing and maintaining cultural competence. So what's my own culture? Was the cultural background of the students that are in my learning environment, my learning community, in my classroom? How do I utilize that? Another piece of that is encouraging the use of students' home language. I'm just going to throw lots of different things at you in terms of possible resources or ideas, and so hopefully you can take notes if it resonates with you. And then, of course, affirming family knowledge, and that comes up here around learning about the cultural background of your students and families, and then validating that, making space for that, honoring that. With that, I invite, and I know you'll probably be creating other agreements for your time together, but I offer, this is one of the ways that I have experienced ensuring that I can stay a part of courageous conversations, as Glenn Singleton out of Pacific Education Group guides folks through his work around courageous conversation for race, is about staying engaged there will be moments in over the next 5 days where you might say, you know what, I really like to just turn my camera off here. Like there's going to be some tough moments in this work, and so I invite you to try to stay engaged and also experience the discomfort. And so, as many of you know, in the book White Fragility, there really is some focus around understanding what happens when I get uncomfortable. Am I going to try to defend myself? Am I going to try to fight with the presenter? Am I going to do some kind of um, other strategy, like throw some kind of thing in the chat that will just sabotage like the direction of the group, things like that. And so I always talk about noticing where's my discomfort happening, because discomfort for me, and based on my trauma background, I've learned to understand it shows up in feelings and also emotionally, but also physically. As I've mentioned earlier, speaking your truth to me is the most important, starting with self. I'm not a fan of people telling about stories of others unless they were active participant and engaging in that learning, because I think creates a disconnection for us between ourself and sometimes people's diversity, and do we end up in that othering place again? I always think expecting and accepting non-closure again from Glenn Singleton is critical. Even in this conversation with me today, this keynote presentation is, I may have said some things that you're going to say, geez, I want to know more about that, or I don't ever want to think about that again, right? And so, and that's okay. But just know that things are going to come up for you, and be prepared for that. Perhaps it's not over. But I just want to invite you that to not be daunted by the enormity of the world's grief, because there's a lot of people grieving. Do justly now, love mercy now, walk humbly now. You're not obligated to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it.